Stitch number 28 is the threaded herringbone stitch, which you can work as I've done here in 2 colors, or you can use just 1 color. Here's another example, 2 different color combinations. So you start by doing the herringbone stitch. Which is easiest to do if you draw 2 parallel lines. But you can eyeball it too if you want. So come up at one end of the line, and then you make a diagonal stitch over to the other line. And then you come up a short distance behind on the same line where you just inserted the needle. And then you're going to make a diagonal stitch over to the other line, like that. And then you come back up on the same line, just behind where you just inserted the needle. And where you just came up should more or less be parallel to where you came down with the first diagonal stitch. And then you come across again diagonally to the other line. Come back up behind again. This should roughly correspond to where you inserted the needle before on the other line. So you keep making these diagonal stitches that are overlapping. So the herringbone is a base stitch for the actual stitch, the threaded herringbone stitch. So let me just do this to the end of the line. Right, so now we have a nice row of herringbone stitch to play with. So let me change color. So you come up just inside the band of herringbone here, next to the end of that first stitch. And then you slide the needle under that first stitch from the outside, so that the thread is threaded under. And you're not catching the fabric. This is all on the surface now. So now you come through the next stitch, so that you're pointing the needle diagonally, sort of backwards. Let's turn it, might make it easier. And then you take the next stitch, slide the needle under, and you keep going back and forth like that. So that the thread sits over where the two stitches cross, and then it goes under where the stitch is on its own. And you keep going like that until you get to the end. If you run out of thread when you're doing the threading, don't worry. Let's say that you're almost out of thread at this point. What you can do is just insert the needle just under the diagonal stitch here. Like that. And then I'm just going to secure the thread on the back so I don't unravel stuff, but pretend that I have tied this off. So now I'm going to start with a new thread, and I come up in the same spot where I just inserted the needle to finish off my imaginary short thread. And then I slide the needle under the stitch, and then I'm ready to repeat the pattern, going over where the stitches cross and then back under the single stitch. Right, and now I'm right at the end of my herringbone. I just come under as normal, and then I insert the needle inside the band just to the left of the top of that final stitch, and then I can secure it on the back. So in the template you have the parallel lines, and I've also drawn some of the herringbone stitches, and you can just repeat this all across, or you can just do it by eye. And I've drawn some of these just to give you an idea of what's happening. So let's start it, and notice that the herringbone does not start right at the corner. That's for a different stitch. It starts right here. So I'm working my herringbone stitch along these very badly drawn lines. So I'm using a variegated thread here. I think this would be a fun stitch to try with 2 different variegated threads, or even just 2 solid colors. I like how the colors sort of start to blend. So here there's sort of a bluey green with the yellow, and it makes the middle seem more green. Right, let's try it with my contrasting thread. So I start from the inside of the first stitch right at the top. Slide the needle, first pass the needle over the thread and then under the same thread, and then it goes over the point where they cross, under the single thread, over the cross, under the stitch, over the cross. This actually works up really quickly, even though you first have to work the band of herringbone stitch, but even that works up fairly quickly as well. So it's a very satisfying stitch to work, and it's good for borders, which is why I'm using it for a border in this design. I like this pink with this variegated thread. It's always nice to see the different combinations that happen with a variegated thread. Right, so that's a threaded herringbone stitch. Happy stitching. The tutorial you have just watched is part of a series of 31 stitch tutorials that I have made to go along with the pattern for this embroidery stitch sampler. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. If you want to check out the pattern, you can find the link in the description. And whatever you're making, happy stitching.